Okay, thank you all for joining us again. We are having our third speaker of the morning, and it is my pleasure to introduce you all to Margaret McKLamb. She came to us from California, but she's going to tell you a little bit about her journey and her background. But she came here and so curious about everything, and was ferns and mushrooms and getting rid of invasive fish. But these opportunities would take her off of this island. And so she really wanted to stay here on this island and commit to it. And so she found a direction that served her learning purposes, and she's going to share about that. And I just really want to say how much I really appreciate your sense of humor and what you brought to all the courses and to your entire experience. Really, it was really fabulous. So anyway, welcome, join me in welcoming Margaret to the stage.
Thank you, Lisa. Aloha kako. I am Margaret McKLamb, and thank you for being here today. I'll be presenting on the development of my professional competencies in conservation leadership and practice. And please note that all the pictures in my presentation without credits are my photos. I will also be reflecting on the skills that I brought into this program, the skills I developed through coursework, and skills strengthened through my professional internship and extracurriculars, and how all of these experiences are shaping the trajectory of my future career. So I want to start off with a little bit about me. I'm an 8th generation Californian, born and raised in Northern California, in the same town where my father was raised. But I was also raised with strong ties to Ventura County in Southern California, where my mother was born and raised. I come from a family of farmers, so working with land and natural systems has always been a part of my life. I'm the youngest of 4, and my family has been my biggest inspiration throughout my life. I earned my Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Science and Planning with a concentration in concentration in conservation and restoration, with a minor in biology from Sonoma State University. During my undergraduate studies, I developed a deeper appreciation for ecological systems and the complexity of the natural world. I became particularly interested in mycology and ecological importance of fungi, and as well as the vast gaps in our understanding of that kingdom. My undergraduate education also fostered a strong appreciation for native, especially California natives, and that perspective carried forward when I moved to Hawaii, where endemism is higher and the risk of extirpation is even greater due to geographic isolation. Seeing the impacts of the Anthropocene on nature, specifically wildfire in Northern California, was especially formative for me, and witnessing how a single event could affect landscapes and communities far beyond its origin helped me understand the local impacts can have regional and even global consequences. The picture displayed here of the burnt book page was found in a field hundreds of miles away from the wildfire it came from. So after completing my undergraduate degree, I moved to Southern California, where I began farming for a biodynamic regenerative farm. I gained experience managing poultry operations and supervising apprentices while maintaining over 1,000 birds at a time. That experience strengthened my leadership abilities and practical skills, including operating tractors and other equipment and managing biological systems at a large scale. During COVID, I was given the opportunity to transition into utility vegetation management, and I became an International Society of Arboriculture certified arborist and a tree risk assessment qualified professional. I was promoted to a senior supervising utility arborist and gained extensive experience in tree risk assessment, safety protocols, and vegetation and human management. However, while working within a large corporate structure, I began to feel increasingly disconnected from the conservation values that I hold dearly. That realization ultimately led me to apply to the Tropical Conservation Biology and Environmental Science program in order to return to the conservation field and the things that I really care about. So through my graduate coursework, I significantly expanded my technical skill set. I learned 3D modeling and digital design using Unity, including digitizing physical models and working with them in a digital environment. I developed audio production and editing skills using Audacity, where I learned how to clean up recordings, balance sound, and produce polished podcast-style media. I gained experience coding in RStudio, translating ecological data sets into statistical outputs and visualizations that could be interpreted and communicated more broadly. In conservation modeling, I used Excel and R to analyze landscape vulnerability, predict wildfire risk, and model population responses to disturbances. Here are a few examples of my deliverables for a couple of my classes. In quantitative ecology, we used real-life data to create box plots, QQ plots, and various other statistics to analyze ecological data to determine statistical significance. In GIS, I developed spatial analysis skills and created various maps using real data, including analyzing outplanting success rates within my internship site to help determine optimal future planting areas. These tools collectively strengthened my ability to analyze, interpret, and communicate conservation data. And so to talk a little bit more about my internship, my professional internship was conducted with the Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative in the South Kahalamoku and the Waikōloa Ahupua'a, also sometimes referred to the Waimea Ahupua'a. WDFI is a small nonprofit organization managing a 275-acre dry forest preserve. The Hawaiian dry forest is one of the most threatened ecosystems, with over 90% of it being lost in the last 200 years. WDFI, in the last decade since becoming established, has actively restored over 65 acres of native Hawaiian dry forest, as well as applied seed scatter techniques to an additional 40 acres. Their preserve holds a population of kupuna wiliwili and uhi trees. Both species are threatened and endangered while being prominent to Hawaiian culture. WDFI is a very small organization with 4 employees, but they are doing everything in their power to make a big difference. So although small, WDFI is mighty in the impact that they are making. As a 501c3 nonprofit, they rely on grants and donations as their main income source. They also have the Dusty Donkey Emporium as a revenue stream. The Dusty Donkey is a thrift store that is located in the Waikōloa stables and over the years has become a staple for the community. WDFI also hosts multiple outreach events throughout the year, their longest standing being the Wili Wili Festival, which is celebrated just last month, and this year was their 15th annual. This event opens the preserve to the public and allows people to tour the preserve, learn about all that it has to offer, as well as meet and see other conservation groups from across Hawaiʻi. They also, as of last year, have taken over as the hosts of the Nahelehele Dry Forest Symposium, which welcomes anyone and everyone in dryland forest conservation to participate in and exchange the current knowledge and efforts that are being taken for the Hawaiian dry forest. WDFI also plays a huge role in the youth education in Waikōloa and Waimea communities. What began as an in-class program to teach STEM in local schools soon evolved into an after-school program that the community desperately needed. They now offer AINA-based after-school programs throughout the week that follows the Department of Education's schedule, as well as other programs during school breaks. I'll go a little bit more into these programs in just a little bit, but for now, let's transition over to what I did with the Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative. During my internship with WDFI, I filled multiple roles and often functioned as an assistant to the executive director, supporting whichever area required attention at the time. A significant portion of my internship involved hands-on restoration work. I participated in nursery days and volunteer days, where I helped with seed harvesting from the preserve, seed scarification to improve germination, seed propagation, uppotting seedlings into larger containers, irrigation maintenance, and outplanting to restoration zone. Working with dry forest species requires an understanding of their adaptations to episodic rainfall and learning specialized germination techniques to improve survival rates. Being directly involved in these processes deepened my understanding of applied restoration ecology and gave me more hands-on experience than I had had before. I also supported their youth education initiatives, including the Aina Explorers summer camp programming, the Future Foresters after school programming, and the preserve field trips for classrooms. Pictured here is the older kids Aina Explorers summer camp that is a week long, and it culminates at the Volcano National Park, where this year's focus on geology allowed for a deep conversation about Pele, the fire and volcanoes goddess. And this group of kids also got to tent camp near the park, which allowed them for a night hike to see the glow of the lava in the volcano, which many students had never seen before. I also participated in the Younger Kids Aina Explorer Camp program, which is also a week long, but it's just day trips. The one that I helped specifically with was their Makai Day, where we learned about tide pools, monk seals, corals, and even got to holo down to the water to jump in. And the final picture is a class huaka'i to the Waikōloa Dry Forest Preserve, where teachers are able to bring their entire class for a day field trip to learn and participate in a number of restoration techniques. This class was responsible for planting seeds directly into the soil on the ground, and these programs provide hands-on ecological learning experiences for local children and integrate cultural knowledge alongside Western science. Each program has cultivated curriculum that supports the needs of the students that it is serving. Supporting these programs reinforced my understanding that long-term conservation success depends on intergenerational education and community engagement, specifically in Hawaii, where knowledge is still greatly spread through conservation and hands-on work. Another component of my internship involves supporting the biocultural talk series. This series brings together cultural practitioners and scientists to discuss topics that bridge Indigenous knowledge and ecological science. The 2025 series was based on little biology, the small creatures that make big impacts. My responsibility was to edit the recorded talks into cohesive caption videos and prepare them for publication on the organization's YouTube channel. This required media organization, editing, formatting, and ensuring accessibility with captioning. I also wrote 2 grant proposals, one to support the continuation of the Biocultural Talk series for this year, and one for this coming year's Future Foresters program, as well as a mid-year grant report for one of the funders of the Future Foresters 2024 to 2025 school year, summarizing participation metrics, educational outcomes, and program impacts to support continued funding. Through the process of grant writing, I learned how to translate conservation work into compelling narratives and how to align them with the funders' priorities. At the outset of my internship, I was tasked with developing a genetic expansion framework for the uhi, Mesoneuron caldiense, a critically endangered Hawaiian tree species. This species has less than 50 wild individuals, and many of the wild specimens are coming to the end of their life cycles. WDFI's goal is to create an uhi garden within the Waikōloa Dry Forest Preserve to represent the wild individuals in order to increase their genetic diversity. My role was to coordinate seed exchange among community partners to increase genetic diversity in this outplanting. However, due to limited partner participation, the project was stalled in the planning phase. So instead, I had to pivot to develop a best management outline. And this outline includes questions for community partners when they're able to participate and steps to be followed that will allow for genetic representation that will give the uhi the best chance of survival, as well as details like how many seeds to receive from each founder tree, what their seed reserves look like currently, and if they're interested in also planting seeds from other sites within the preserves. I was also able to determine that the first critical step for this project to begin must be determining founder genetics in order to avoid exacerbating genetic bottlenecks. Although implementation did not occur, this experience underscored the importance of scientific readiness, partnership alignment, and adaptive leadership in conservation work. It was also my first experience being able to fully delve into a single species and scour resources to find out as much information as was available, which for publicly available data is surprisingly little for this keystone species of the dry forests here in Hawaii. Additional ways I was able to participate in the Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative was learning about biotic and abiotic stressors that threaten the dry forest ecosystem. Specifically pictured here is the Erythrina gall wasp, It's on the picture with the leaves. It's that tiny little thing that looks like a smudge. This gall wasp attacks the reproductive features of the willy trees and makes it incredibly difficult for them to reproduce, as well as attacking their foliage to reduce their photosynthetic abilities. In 2008, there was a biocontrol released, and the Waikōloa Dry Forest Preserve, among other location sites within Hawaii, were release sites. This biocontrol was a competing wasp, and there were some pretty incredible results. However, it's now been long enough that another round of release is necessary due to the Erythrina gall wasps becoming more prevalent again, but there have been significant delays due to the federal shutdowns and funding cuts. For me, it was very interesting to be exposed to these real-life threats and seeing what the conservation community here in Hawaii has been capable of making happen in order to protect these species. Also, having a general exposure to the native dry land expanded my knowledge in ways I never would have expected. I was able to get very familiar with the species that WDFI is investing so much time and effort into preserving. I tabled the free plant giveaway this year at the Willy Festival, and that allowed me to talk to the public about the plants that we are trying to save, as well as add to the Willy tracking system to see where across the island people have planted Willy trees that started as seeds on the Waikōloa Dry Forest Preserve. I was able to coordinate an outreach event for WDFI at the Hakalau Walk for Wild event, which is an annual event that allows the public to explore the Hakalau Forest Preserve. This event was a great way to talk to people that are mostly on the east side of the island about the conservation work that WDFI is doing on the west side of the island. And there are a lot of people that are unaware of the work that's being done in the dry forest. So beyond my internship, I engaged in additional community-based conservation efforts, including volunteer work days, loka restoration, and lo'i restoration. These activities all allowed me to learn about Hawaiian ecological practices, as well as learn about specific ways to help and participate within Hawaii's ecosystems. For example, we were able to use the coconut husks that are typically thrown away as mulch for newly established taro patch. I was able to learn about the maintenance of a fully functioning lo'i, as well as being able to get my hands dirty to help remove invasive plant species from a local ia that has not been able to function in many years. The restoration of this local ia will allow for fish to be brought back to this community as a food source that haven't been able to benefit from since the invasive species have suffocated out the water. In just a single day of work, we were able to clear the bank of plants to allow the fresh spring water to flow back into the local ia so that the water will no longer be stagnant and life can be brought back into this local ia. Additional skills I was able to learn from volunteering included being an entomologist for the 2024 Hakalau Walk for the Wild event, where I helped collect bugs and bring them back to an information table that was hosted by the Alala Biodiversity Lab to teach the visitors about the arthropod community at Hakalau. As someone that has never really been a bug person before, I was able to learn collection and storage techniques, as well as general and fun facts about the different species. Also, I was able to experience Hawaiian conservation culture, where people come together to give back to the aina that provides so much for us all, and build a community that is fighting for the greater good of Hawaii. After my internship, I took on a role with the TCBES Student Club. The Kaemeaola Club is an independent student organization that hosts the annual TCBES Symposium and Nā Leo Hulihia, which was previously known as the Women in STEM Conference. Within the club, I served as the treasurer, where I was able to put some of the skills from my internship into action and write multiple funding proposals for our events. The funding proposals included detailed budgeting requests, meeting with the funders, and coordinating with the club to ensure that all of our goals were met. Our symposium will be April 16th and 17th this year if anyone would like to attend. The program has strengthened my technical skills in data analysis, GIS, conservation modeling, media production, grant writing, budgeting, restoration practice, and education facilitation. It has also deepened my appreciation for Hawaii's ecosystems, native species, and the importance of honoring Indigenous knowledge and place-based stewardship. I will continue learning and using Olelo Hawaiʻi where appropriate, including place names, and approach this work with respect for the culture and ecological significance of Hawaii. I plan to stay engaged through community workdays, volunteer efforts, and restoration activities, contributing in ways that are helpful and grounded in the needs of the communities I am working alongside. Moving forward, I hope to pursue work in conservation data management, restoration leadership, and arboriculture, potentially integrating my previous arborist experience with ecological restoration. I remain particularly interested in fungal ecology and its potential applications in conservation, so maybe there will be some opportunities to incorporate that in the future. My ultimate goal is to give back to Hawaii with all of the skills I have gained and look forward to continuing to work for this paina. I would like to say mahalo to the team at Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative, Jen, Rob, Keisha, and Bridget. Mahalo to my advisor, Lisa Canali. Mahalo to my cohort in TCBES. And mahalo to my friends and family for their never-ending support. Mahalo to all of you for being here today, and I can take a couple questions if you have them. You know, a question is if there's a specific species that is threatening the willy-nilly. Yeah, the fountain grass is detrimental for dryland forest, just for all of their species. The gall wasp specifically goes after the willy-willy, but there's just like a bunch of things that are inundating that entire ecosystem. Anybody online has any questions? I see. Okay. Okay. Skills I've learned everything into that. Absolutely all of them. They specifically Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative is kind of putting their hands in all different lanes of conservation work. So I know that there are other nonprofits that specifically just do the restoration or just do the outreach or just do the education. And so a nonprofit like Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative is doing all of those things. And that's where my role as an intern really came in, and I was able to delve into each of those different things depending on the need of. So what are the biggest holdbacks that Waikōloa Dry Forest Initiative is facing? Definitely human. So they manage land that is owned by the Waikōloa Village Association and are in negotiations to buy the land, but there's obviously a bunch of holdups because that's an HOA. So being able to increase their footprint would be really huge for this community. And would allow for them to do more direct restoration for that land that's in that area. Obviously, funding is always a huge thing. If they had more resources, they would be able to hire more staff, but they're kind of limited just because they're so small right now that increasing obviously has its issues to like scale up in large terms. So they're kind of being hit from behind. So given the strength or the skills I was able to learn through this, what is my strength? I think that my greatest strengths would be, well, I mostly enjoy the data management. I was not expecting to really enjoy the media production, which I found to be really awesome. And I do really enjoy the youth education aspect. I'm probably not as cool as Corinne where I can figure out the curriculum side of it, but the implementation and like working with kids is also really amazing. So yeah, my experience with Waikōloa Dry Forest was really cool because I got to kind of build in every single area that was interesting for me. So given my interest in fungi and microremediation, do I know if anybody on this island's doing it? Yeah, so actually one of the TCBES alumni started a microremediation project, and her name's actually Hannah too. She's doing a really, really amazing thing, but she's still starting out. And so when we first contacted her, actually first semester on Lisa's recommendation, she was like, come back to me in like a year or two, and I'll be ready to like talk about it and move forward. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll check in. Thank you.